Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Student Insider podcast. I hope you're all doing good. Luke, how are you doing today?
Alex, you absolutely smashed that intro. We're doing good. We're doing good. Got an interesting topic for today. We are going to be talking about the social side of university, so make sure to stick around. We're going to have a great conversation, I imagine. But Alex, let's get the update. How's things?
Yeah. This definitely sounds like an interesting episode. I'm doing pretty good. Back into the role of university. In-person classes. It's been like a very long time because I was on placement year last year. So it's been technically like 2.5 years since I had like actual in-person classes. Yeah, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, it's been good fun to be back. Lots of making the most of, like all those sports and society stuff. So much stuff is around when you find it. So yeah, living life, feeling good.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good, yeah, because obviously you've had the COVID pandemic hit and then also a placement year. So now you've only had classes
6 months.
Yeah, so it's been a long time since you've been back in person and interacting.
Mm-hmm. Only 6 months of in-person classes I had. Like
6 months.
No, like 6-7 months from like before I went into my final year, which is kind of crazy.
Well, enjoy it, dude. Sounds exciting.
Yeah. Got a dissertation to do.
Oh well, yeah, of course. I'm done and dusted with my dissertation now. So it's all you got the big third year final project. It's fine. You'll be alright. I'm sure you're a smart kid.
Yeah, I'll be alright. Well, yeah. How you doing anyway?
Yeah, we're not bad. I actually just recovered from COVID. I had flu symptoms, and I was interested. Do I have COVID or not? So I did one of the lap flows I had left over, and turns out I did have COVID. It was very aggressive. Like the line was so thick. It was very, very thick, very dark. I slept the whole day a couple of days ago, but I'm doing a lot better. And I've kind of been a bit anxious because there's no COVID restrictions anymore, but I also don't want to go and meet family and friends and make them sick because I know it's contagious. So I've had a bit of a dilemma. But outside of that, we've been good. I've been doing a little bit of networking recently, looking for opportunities. Which has been exciting, and I've also been doing some instruments. I got myself an amplifier for my bass. It's a Fender Rumble 15, I think, or the 25. Nice. One of that. It's massive. It's probably, I don't know if you can probably see this on the camera, but it's very, very big. And I've been blasting, annoying the neighbours, having a good time with that. Things have been good.
Nice. What kind of stuff have you been playing?
So I actually have a Spotify playlist that's called Basslines I Can Play. It's got a lot of Coldplay on there, starting off simple. And there's this artist that I really enjoy called Eve, a Japanese artist. And I just find the bass lines very like upbeat and fast, and they're quite difficult to play. So I find them a bit of a challenge as well. But the recent thing I've been learning is The Less I Know The Better by Tame Impala. You might have heard it. It's a good song. Look it up. It has a good bass, so I've been trying to play that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, sweet. Shall we jump into the main topic? Oh, we need to do question of the week.
I was going to say question of the week, Alex.
That just popped into my head. How did I forget that? Okay, let's just have a quick think.
I do have one for you, but I don't know if it's your turn to ask me. I can't remember.
You go for it then, because I was still trying to think of one. So you
all right.
Fire away.
I think it's good, but I've been looking a lot into the company 80,000 Hours recently, and they're based around providing advice on careers, specifically for people that want to have high impact careers, so targeting like the biggest global problems. So my question to you is, improvising, is if you could solve or work towards solving one big global crisis. There's quite a long list. We could maybe pull up a list just to see so you've got a bit of direction, but what do you think you'd dedicate your career to and why?
Global crisis. Okay, it's an interesting question.
List a couple of examples off the top of my head. So you've got like I think there's more recent ones would be the sort of the threat that AI poses, and like this is the security side of like, because everything's becoming digital, right? So there's obviously like a level of security that you need. So there's that. There's like climate. There's like hunger, poverty, disease. Like there's so many different things that I can think of. But I'm basically asking what's the most important here, which is kind of an unethical question, but more interest, not as in priority, more interest.
Okay, so I'm going to think this as, because there's lots of directions I could go with this. Just without any research based off this, I'm just going to think of what one I would think, just one that I think is could have a high impact, not necessarily the most important one, because I would have to look more into that to make an informed decision. So I'm not going to say this is the most. I'm just going to say this is something that impactful is where I'm going to take the direction of the question. That can have an impact on like society. There's so many directions I could take this.
Bit of a broad question.
Do you want to just say it once more?
So, if you could dedicate your career to solving or like tackling one like global problem or crisis, what would you dedicate your time to, do you think?
I think I would, based on like my interests in different areas of life, I reckon it would go down the route of something to do with like psychology or like self-help kind of thing, in terms of like people like not living on autopilot kind of thing, to like kind of get out of the like I don't know. So so like for example, you say the links to AI, right? Like how these things are becoming extremely smart, that they can probably hear everything that we're saying right now, and like use that to target our advertising or whatever. And like that's kind of weird to think about, like how you could speak about something, like you're hanging out with a few people and you're speaking about something and you get targeted advertising on your phone. That's a bit like are they listening to every single thing? Like I've seen that happen before. I'm sure you've seen that happen before.
Yeah,
like,
it's very weird.
But the main thing I would get on this like thought process is to do just not go through the motions without any thought. Like for example, like say you're in a role, in a job or whatever, and you're not enjoying it, but just taking those like times to just think about things and kind of like reflect on it, see where am I going in the direction I really want to go, am I doing the things I really want to do, kind of like helping people to live more intentionally. But I would say also that how in life your happiness, if that's what I'm thinking, is like not determined just by your work, obviously. And so that could be doing things like a sport, or like just like a hobby or whatever, like that could bring you more joy. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but yeah.
No, I think
I don't know.
I can see where you're coming from.
I'm just thinking of like helping people not live on autopilot. That's all I'm saying. Like, don't go through the motions. Don't like scroll on TikTok 5 hours a day without thinking about it. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I going to this place at this time on this day? Like, do I really want to? Do I want to be doing something else? Or do I actually want to go, like, am I going to enjoy this? Like, I don't know. Just not going through the motions. Like, going through the motions with intentionality. That's what I'm saying. Because that's how we lit that. Like, have it being, like, more goal-oriented. Like, some people say goals are great. Some people say, I don't like goals. I think goals are important because that puts you in a direction of your day-to-day life. Like, what do I want to improve on? Just literally just going through that process. What do I want to improve on? Setting a vision, and then just like slowly building up over time to get where you want to go. Like I'd say telling people to be more like think about themselves. Like like you say, okay, how would you help society as a whole? Tell them to think about more themselves. That's a bit controversial in a way. Like, I could solve hunger. Yes, that's of course a very big thing, but I'm just thinking in terms of like something that could be impactful for society to be happier, right? Like, obviously having food on the table is a extremely big thing. Like, that's the most like fundamental level of happiness in like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like shelter and food, obviously. But in terms of what I've done before and my experience is, I don't know how to solve world hunger. I don't know how to solve world hunger, so that's not something I'm really going to work towards at the moment. But like, that's just my thought process on your question. Interesting question. I like these things that make me think.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you did a little bit of thinking. I like how the answer adapted over that. And of course, if world hunger was that easy to solve, then it would have been solved.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
But what I gathered from that is that it would be for you like a mixture between like careers advice and mental health or spirituality, something like that. And I guess there's a few different routes that you could take if you were interested in doing that, right? Because you've got content creators like Ali Abdul and that help with like the productivity and being more intentional with your work, what you were saying. But then you've also got like an alternate perspective where you have like big health tech companies like Headspace is a good example where they provide like meditation services, and I think that their company do quite a few different things. I think they do like therapy, online therapy, and some other things that you can get involved in. But that's another alternative where you're probably having a bigger impact because you're reaching more people. But then again, it depends on your reach as an influencer as well. So I think that's a good answer. Basically, that's my sort of additions to your point.
Okay, yeah. There's also a good app that I found recently called Medito. It's like a meditation app that's free to so it's like a free version of Headspace kind of thing, and they have like different stuff on there. It's pretty good.
I don't know. I'd have to see how the voice actor is because I think Andy from Headspace, his voice is just so soothing.
I do like the voice from Headspace. It's quite good.
Andy something his name is. I think it's I have to look him up. But interesting answer, Alex. Thank you. Let's hop into the episode. So so title undecided, but we are going to talk a bit about the social side of university, and we think that it's a good timing because a lot of A-level students are starting to apply for uni, or a new round of first years have just come into uni around about now, right? Like term starting for university.
Yeah, so like I think my thought process for this, right, is first let's take a step back before you get to uni. But even if you are here, there's nothing stopping you in terms of like that whole like social side of university. I think you got to work on like your confidence. Like you have to be able to just go up to people and talk to them, like, and just smile and just be yourself and not be like reserved or looking down at the floor, or like just going up and just having genuine conversations with people. And I think that comes with practice, 100%. Like it's so easy because everyone's in the same shoes when you move to uni, right? I mean, even if you're in your second or third or fourth year like me, for example, I'm technically in my fourth year and I'm still meeting new people today. It's just because you've got to make conversations. Like it's just how it works. And I think that happens with confidence, and that confidence happens with practice and just repeating, speaking to people.
Well, in terms of like when is this before you go to uni or when you're at uni?
So I think both, like before you go to uni, to kind of get in the groove of it, is like just say you're just like walking down the road. I think I said it before, just like saying like afternoon to the person walking their dog or whatever. Like that kind of like small things just increase your confidence with conversations, and not be like scared to speak to people. But even when you're at uni, the more things you go to, the more opportunity you have to talk to people, the higher confidence you get, the better chances of the more opportunity to build relationships with people.
100%. I think being comfortable in who you are and being able to show your full, authentic self to people is a big part of making friends and really making the most of your university experience. I think it's interesting that confidence comes up first, and I really like the analogy you use of just saying, good afternoon to, your neighbor, or, someone just walking their dog that you don't necessarily know, because to a lot of people that's quite an uncomfortable thing, doing that. And I think that confidence can really be defined as like a sphere of comfort, as in you expand how comfortable you are in different situations by pushing into the fear that you feel and the anxiety, and then gradually that doesn't feel as fearful as the first time you do it, and then you repeat this process until this you have this bigger bubble that you can fit more stuff in. I think that is what confidence really is. It's just a expansion of how comfortable you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess like the if it's the layer of discomfort, it's just a little bit, right, of like how you feel comfortable, then it's like easier to then do that thing. So let's say you got your layer of comfort, like going just a little bit out is much more achievable, versus someone that, like, say, everyone has their own like level of what's discomfort, right? So you just build up slowly to kind of like increase that confidence by just going a little bit out of that comfort zone each time.
No, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting approach.
Yeah, I think that's the main way of really building your confidence is if you can be more comfortable in uncomfortable situations, then you're able to be more authentic to yourself in those situations too. And I mentioned Tim Ferriss a lot, and you might sort of be picking up on what I'm going to say here. But in the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, he asks you, as like an exercise, to just stare at random people that you're walking past on the street, and then just see how long it takes them to like avert their gaze away from you. And I tried this exercise, and at first it made me very uncomfortable because I was like, I don't know if this person's going to absolutely like, right hook me. It's like, what the hell are you staring at, kind of thing. But then you realise, and eventually you can actually gauge just how confident people are just by looking at how long they gaze at you for. Like, if someone gazes at you like for more than a second, then they're pretty confident, I think. Like, they're like, why are you staring at me? But other people would be like, oh my god, why are they looking at me? Like, why are they staring at me? And then they avert their gaze quickly. And you can really pick up on how confident someone is. And it was really interesting to try that experiment, and I really encourage people to try it too. And Tim Ferriss elaborated a bit on this in one of his episodes on his podcast. And he was saying that by asking these like small things and gradually building them up, it makes the bigger asks easier. And I think that really does apply to university as well, is that when you're trying to make these big social decisions, if you want to apply to, be the president of a society or something, a lot of people might feel a lot of anxiety in doing that. But if you can really face that fear, we spoke with Rada Rue about this, didn't we, from MasterChef, about fear. If you can really just face that fear and learn to sort of, enjoy that discomfort to a certain extent, because you know that there's going to be growth from it. Like, being the president of a society has got its own benefits, and it's in many ways. I've run iGEM, but I've never necessarily done society-based things, but I can definitely see the benefits of it. But you'd take that experience away from yourself if you never tried, because you weren't confident in yourself.
Yeah, a couple of things there. So I'll jump on back on the society president link in a second, but it's interesting you've done the gazing thing from Tim Ferriss, because I've done that as well when I read the book a while ago.
Oh, you tried it too? That's awesome.
Yeah, I've tried it as well.
At some point, yeah.
Yeah. Like so it was like my next level up from that was like saying, like, speaking to people, just like kind of like afternoon or whatever.
You did take it to the next level, because I never got around to that.
Yeah. So I done the thing where just like, you're just walking down the street and you just look at someone in the eye, and then I remember they say in the book, it's like, you just like gaze in the direction or whatever, like, and they say, and if someone goes to you, why are you looking at me? You're like, I thought you was someone I knew or whatever, which makes sense, right? Like,
why would you be staring at someone otherwise, right? It's weird.
Exactly.
So you're like, I'm doing an experiment.
It's interesting to see how I guess you can gauge how confident people are from that very small interaction. If they just like put their head straight down on the floor, they get their phone out or whatever, whatever the response is to that, if they smile back or not, like, it's interesting. And I think that it's just, it's those little things that that can increase that like social confidence. And so in terms of the like what being on a committee, for example, for society, so I think it's really good experience. So you've done the iGEM thing, which I think was really interesting, because you're like leading the team. So that's like,
oh, thank you, man.
That's really, really cool. It's really good for responsibility, and you seem to learn a lot. You learn a lot from that. And like, for example, so I'm on the committee for the business society this year, and I was like, okay, I'm going into my final year. I don't want like a role with too much responsibility. I've done the president stuff for a society before. I'm just running like the competitions. Like, it's like 2 or 3 a year that we're doing, so something that's like not too much, but still like being part of the committee. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll apply to that. I applied to it, managed to get the role, which was pretty decent. I think there's only one other person that applied to the one that I went for, and it's like those that even like that. Just it's not a little that little role gave me an opportunity the other week to just like film a video for the society, which is pretty good fun. Like I just went down to the society fair, with people that I knew at the business society, like being on the committee and stuff, and then filmed a little video with them, and then ended up going on Instagram and I got like 2,000 views or something really quickly. Or I was like, well, Instagram Reels popping off, like like something like that anyway. But yeah, it's interesting to see how it comes back to this thing, like the more things you do, the more opportunities you have, like, and that just goes in like a massive like loop. Like it's just little actions. I think it's like, what is it? Someone said like little actions, big results, or something like that. But yeah.
No, I think that you've outlined it quite well. I think doing society work is very beneficial, and you said it's quite minimal for you. Is that right? In terms of workload, or
so this role hasn't like so the competitions like officer. So I think it'll be like bigger loads in a smaller time, like kind of like like it's like 2 or 3 projects in the year. So it's like it's not too bad. But it's like if you've got little stuff that you do for this as being on the committee as well, like a general responsibility. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's easy to balance like on the side, especially if you're only doing like one committee role or something like that. But yeah.
But it's manageable is the main thing, I think. Is
100%, yeah. I think if you want it to be manageable, it's manageable.
Interesting you say if you want it to be manageable, if it's manageable, because I don't know, I feel that when you get involved in these like student events and these initiatives, it stops feeling like work when you're in a group, when you're working towards something. I feel like there's a social aspect of doing society work. You know, when you're messaging the group chat, you're organising these events and you go to these events. I think there is a social aspect to it, rather than it being
I agree with that. Yeah, because like for example, when I was like filming this video with them, it was very social because I was interacting with the people that we were filming the video with, having like laughs and whatever. Like it didn't feel like work. I do enjoy like filming stuff and stuff, so that also contributes. But it was just felt very enjoyable and like and yeah, I guess it does. It shows how as humans we do thrive in a social environment. Yeah.
Awesome. I do want to sort of cast back to that confidence that we were saying at the beginning, and you know, having that confidence to reach out to people and make those friends. Because I think that the initial barrier, I think the biggest barrier to university is really establishing those contacts and support groups. Really, is the main thing. And as you said, confidence can be a big thing to that. And I actually mentioned this a little bit in episode 20. But the best way to make friends is through time and vulnerability. I don't know if you remember me mentioning this, and it was in the social episode.
Maybe I remember you talking to something about that, maybe. But yeah, carry on.
But anyway, using psychology and studies, apparently the best way to make friends is to spend time with them, which is obvious. I think that's pretty obvious, right? From getting to know someone. But being vulnerable is another big thing, and I think that goes hand in hand with being more confident in yourself and just not having that fear of the judgment that's going to come if you're vulnerable about things about yourself that you don't necessarily want to tell people, but it would help you establish a better connection with those people. And I don't want to go too much into that. Definitely check out episode 20 if you are interested in hearing about that. We do have timestamps for those. But that is something that I would definitely encourage is being more vulnerable.
Yeah, I do remember you mentioning that now. It's like I think you were talking about how you were just talking about like your thought process or whatever, like your current point in life, and I guess just having that what you say, vulnerability makes it easier to make genuine connections, which I think is really simple when you just put yourself out there. You know, and you don't the most important thing is just don't overthink conversations. I think that's the most important thing. Like, don't think about what you're going to say. Just like
that probably goes hand in hand with being more confident, and I think the paranoia as well is a big thing, because if you're thinking about what you're going to say to someone, you're worrying about their response before you've even said anything. So it's just better just to say the response. You know, say something cringe or awkward, and then you'll realise, you know, if these are the kind of people that you want to be friends with, right? Is that Because if they respond badly to your authentic self, then really they're not going to be good friends to you, really.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's how I would approach it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was very, very paranoid and anxious in first year. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I was, big confident man. I think we were saying a second ago, actually, we spoke a little bit about work-life balance, which we're going to get into a bit later. But if you go back to episode 2 where we mentioned work-life balance, you can hear the difference in confidence in our voices, I think. If you compare to how we speak now compared to how we used to speak back then, I feel like I'd recommend you do it as well, Alex. Honestly, I think it's crazy to see the difference.
I think we have more like, I don't know what's the word, assertion or confidence in the way we're saying things. I guess that comes both with experience and just understanding more, like, about ourselves, I guess. But also to just loop back a second to like I think it'd be good to go through, like, this is like my main thought process. If for someone going to university or starting out, is just go to as many events as possible. Like, I can't reiterate that enough. Just like go to as many things as possible. Go to the first like 2-3 weeks. There's like hundreds of taster sessions for like sports and societies. Go to as many as possible. Like, literally, even if you feel tired, go. Like, the taster sessions are only in the first 2 weeks of each semester usually. Just go to as many as possible. See what kind of people are there. How much do you vibe with the activity? And then but even if you miss that, you can just like go turn up to one of the events at like because they do like reoccurring things like every week or whatever. That could be your like taster session. Usually the clubs are pretty chill about that. You can just like shoot them a message on the email or Instagram or whatever, and they're like, yeah, sure, just come along. You don't have to get the membership just yet, but if you want to keep coming, obviously get the membership. But yeah, those things are really, I think those are really important to just meet people, really. Like, and like, so for example, I play basketball, and I hadn't played basketball at uni for a while as not being here, and it's like, because you're on there, really, you just understand people that have the same interests as you, right? Like, you just get on really well with them. Like, and yeah, I'll go basketball, like, I'm going like 2-3 times a week now, and it's just really good fun. And then you're getting along with those people that have the same interest, and like, I'm picking up squash as well. I'm not trying to get into, I'm not that good, like, there's people that I went to the session the other day, people that are like 100 times better than me, but it's just enjoyable.
It's not about like, being good, though, is it? It's about
well, it is about
competitive
being good as
man,
well.
Alex.
Like, yeah, you got like, I don't like, I will like have that just like thing to want to improve in something, like. So when I was like, I don't know, it's just like one of those things that when you do something, I don't want to just be like, I don't want to just not improve, anyway. But yeah, I was just watching people, like, so when I was at the stage session, we were doing like a kind of drill or whatever, and
at the train station?
one on one off, a drill in squash, like a sports
drill.
Did
I hear train station?
No.
Oh my god, I'm losing it.
Yeah, so we're doing a drill where we had like one person come on, one person come off, like, in squash, and I was just like watching other people play that were like so much better than me, like, while we were doing that, and I could see, oh, okay, they're doing that, this is what I'm doing, that's why it's not working. Like, so I was trying to hit the ball, and like I was too close to the ball, so I couldn't really hit it because I didn't have enough space. Like, I had to like try to like bend the racket round, which wouldn't work, obviously. So I was like, oh, okay, let me step more to the middle, and then, oh, look, it's working now. Like, just those little things. That's why I think being around people that are better than you is very important, especially for like sports and stuff like that. Like, you're not going to get better if you're the best person in the room.
I like that. Yeah, I think so. A great bit of squash advice there to start with if you're having trouble with your squash game. But I will go back just a little bit. But I think, yeah, definitely putting yourself out there at the beginning with jumping into these, like, different sports and these events and things that are going on. I think there's usually there's like a society career thing that they do, like a big, all the societies gather together in a big room, and all the freshers come around and they get like the freebies and they sign up for the different societies and things like that. That's really important. I feel like you should definitely go to those. I actually never went to one.
Have you not?
My time at uni, I never went in first year. I think I had Yeah, I think I did something else, or maybe I was too anxious to go. It could have been that too. I have to think about it. Second year of COVID, and then third year, I'd already established my interests, so I didn't bother. But I do regret not trying more at uni. So as a third year, I can definitely encourage, do put yourself out there, not just for like the social side of it and making friends, but also just to experience things, because you're never going to be able to experience a lot of, these sports and things again, because a lot of clubs just don't exist for them, and you won't get groups of people together that are interested in a sport to such a big capacity as you do at uni, I think.
There's like so many sports and societies. Like at UEA, for example, there's like 200 plus societies, which is insane. Like
you've got a big choice, you've got a big selection.
Yeah, you've got a big choice. You'll find something you're interested in, and even if you think, like say you can't find anything, you can find something that you can try, like, and then you can just see if you enjoy it. And like, even if you don't go to, say you've missed a society fair, it's not the end of the world, right? You can just go on the website and see the long list of societies and see, okay, I could try that, I could try this one, I could try that one. Yeah, I guess that comes to not making excuses. Say, it's too late. Like, no, it's never really too late.
Too
and
late.
like,
you always have time.
Yeah.
You just have to make time for things that you want to do. And it's interesting that you mentioned earlier as well about surrounding yourself with people that are better than you. I don't want to use the term better than you because I feel like that's a bit toxic. But people that inspire you, people that will make you work hard, and surrounding yourself with those people is very important. I feel like, first of all, because it creates that motivation for you, and it gives you, a mentor, someone to help you grow, and that seems like to be a big thing for you, especially, with the squash and the sports you're mentioning. I think like it's a big thing for me as well, is having that, someone that you can aspire to and something to motivate you. And, I think there's a saying that you are the average of the 5 closest people in your I feel like I feel like you might have told me that at one point in one episode. It sounds oddly familiar. But it is very true. You'll find yourself picking up like phrases and like things and bits and bobs from people around you, and I feel like that's just something to show that is really important. That just sparked something that I was reading into recently. Mark Manson has a mailing list, an email, or what do they call it? Is it mailing list?
Yeah, mailing list, email newsletter, something like that.
Yeah, but like a weekly email, and it was about relationships, and it was mentioning the difference between conditional and unconditional relationships, and I feel like that's quite relevant here, where having friendships that are really meaningful are ones that are unconditional, rather than ones that are not, the ones that are conditional. So like, for example, if you can ask yourself a question like, would I be friends with this person if I didn't play squash with them, right? Just for you as an example, that would be a conditional relationship. If you didn't have squash, you wouldn't be friends, right? But an unconditional relationship is, if we stop playing squash together, would we still be friends? If the answer is yes, then that's like a good sign that is an unconditional relationship. That is a relationship that is very meaningful to you. So I feel like at the beginning, you're going to have a lot of conditional relationships. You're going to be friends with someone because they like video games, because they like squash, because they like etc. societies, right? They like the same degree as you. They like science, they like marketing, they like business, but I think over time, and you'll realise and you'll filter through these friends as you go through uni, and it's important to really establish those like unconditional relationships. I don't know if this is something that you've heard of before, Alex.
That does make sense. I haven't heard the specific terms before, but that does make sense. Seeing if you took yourself away from that specific thing, would that relationship still exist? Like, is it just solely dependent on that? Like, I think it's interesting to think about. Like, obviously, nightlife is a massive thing at university, and I'd say you had people that you only went out like clubbing or whatever. But if you took that away, would you still be friends? Like, are some of your friends just people that you're only there to have a good time with, or have you actually had like meaningful interactions and just chilled and talked or whatever, like just stuff like that? And I guess that does link well to with conditional versus unconditional relationships. Yeah, that's interesting to think about.
Yeah, now I think
that just comes back to. I think it just comes back to just finding meaning in in those relationships.
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel like it's an important consideration for if you're trying to make friends and build like good relationships, because you want to come out of uni and have a group of people that you've really connected with and established, a real connection with. And I feel like that's difficult to do if you do follow that conditional route, and it's something to be wary of. But I think as a first year, or someone that's coming to uni, I wouldn't stress over it too much. I feel like a lot of school relationships anyway are very conditional. We're only friends because we have to be sat next to each other in the same class every day, right? Something like that. So it's very common in school. Mark Manson was defining it as like school life as like you have like a coolness level that you have to meet, and you can only interact with people if they reach a certain cool level. That's a conditional relationship. So all the cool kids in school are probably only friends with each other because they're cool. They've got like a coolness level. They can only interact with each other. So that does stick around probably when you go to uni, but I feel like you realise that once you're living on your own and you're living in a flat and you're really looking after yourself, you start to realise who your real friends are. You'll probably realise as well, like once you left school, the people that still messaged you and the people you still hung out with compared to the rest of your school friends, it changes a lot. It definitely changes. So,
I feel
like there's a different dynamic at uni that you need to get used to.
Yeah, I think I'm just check. I got these terms right. The conditional one is where it's based on a certain activity, right?
Yes.
So let's say, so like basketball or whatever. Okay, yeah. So, I think those kind of things are really good to meet people. 100%. It's easy to break the ice or whatever with those kind of things. But then obviously, it's good. I don't think you shouldn't overthink about it, but something to be to consider anyway.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning as well, with making friends and making these connections, I feel like study and social side come hand in hand, because as we were saying, like you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or the closest people in your life. If you're surrounded by people that want to party all the time, you're not going to do very well in class because you're going to be partying all the time. But if you put yourself in a group of students that are motivated, that study hard, then you're also going to study hard and feel more motivated to study. So it's really important in that sense. But at the same time, having a good social sphere at uni, once you leave uni, you'll have a bunch of people you can network with. Like, one of your friends might start a job at a place that you really want to work at, and now you know someone that's got in, and you've got someone that can give you advice and mentor you. And then you wouldn't have had that if you didn't make that connection at uni,
Yeah, and I think it's good because you can kind of like let those, you can like that, you like people that you meet can just become like a part of your just like your network, the different relationships that you have with the friendships you have with people. And it's just like, oh, this person. Oh, I'm trying to get in contact with that person about this thing that this person wanted to know. Oh, there might be a really interesting conversation if we link them two together. Like, it's like, oh, he's got a podcast. Oh my god, he wants to be on a podcast. There's a quote. I think I mentioned it before, but you're 5-6 people away from anyone in the world or something like that.
Yeah, we mentioned that in episode 21. Yeah. Be sure to check that out. We've plugged a few podcast episodes in this episode. But yeah, no, 100%. I think I definitely agree. It's important.
I think that I think the study buddy thing that you're saying is like, it's good to say you've met some people from one thing. Oh, I'm going to the library. Do you want to join or whatever? Just like taking those relationships into different kind of layers or just like different areas is important. Like not only doing just one thing, because then it becomes a very I don't know, closed relationship. What the word is?
Conditional, I guess. You're only friends when you go to the library together. Who knows? It's difficult to figure out. And I think the worst part of it all is that as you're trying to make new friends and you're trying to be social and, make sure you're having that good balance, is that you're also living on your own for the first time, maybe. You've got no support. Maybe you've got your family that you can contact, but in terms of being there in person for you, you've really got no one at the beginning. and you've got to sort out your finances, like travel, living arrangements, and just looking after yourself. Your mum might have done your laundry, she's not doing it for you anymore, kind of things. Sorry, still recovering from COVID here. But I just completely lost track of what I was saying. And so it's difficult to balance that social side, and I feel like it's a good time for us to start unpacking that work-life balance, because I feel like that's a big aspect of what it means to have that social life, because you won't be able to enable yourself that time to be social if you're always at work. And I feel like you mentioned a good point. You're going to the library to study with people, and all your friends, you sit in like a study group room, like a study room, and you're studying together, and then the conversation just starts going haywire, and you've spent the last 2 hours maybe written a paragraph, and you've been talking the whole time. Bit of an ethical dilemma for you, right? Because you're socializing, you're having a good time, but at the same time you have assignments. So where do you draw that work-life balance? Should I be working right now, or should I be socializing? It's a big question, and it makes you feel really guilty because you're not doing work, but then you also feel guilty because you're not socializing more with friends. Just a cycle of guilt, it seems like.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to figure out that balance, right? And I think that the balance of social versus work, everyone's got their own ratio or whatever. But I guess having those, say you go to there's for example, the library on campus here is there's different layers of different floors for different types. So you have the silent study one, and you have the one where you can talk and that kind of thing, and you have bookable rooms or whatever. So you could be let's go to the silent one. We'd do some work, kind of co-work next to each other for 45 minutes, and then I would go outside and just grab a coffee or whatever, and they come back and do some more work. Or you could go to the other layer where you can talk and work at the same time. It depends what kind of vibe you want, but I guess that thought beforehand could be useful. But also having those breaks in between doing a work session with each other, because I think the main thing, so if you're working alone in your room, is you're much more in your head, versus if you've gone somewhere else to work, like a coffee shop or the library or whatever. It's easy to focus, there's other people around you also doing work. It's more of a social environment while working, which is really nice. But yeah,
I think the point that you made, where having that distinction between home and social and work life is helped by having that physical separation as well. Coffee shop is for studying and studying with friends or sitting down and focusing, whereas home life can be more chill. You can just sit back, pick up whatever hobbies you do, go on your phone, go on TikTok, whatever you like doing. And I feel like having that physical distinction it's something we've mentioned here before, and it's definitely something that I would recommend. Helped me out a lot, especially in third year, having that dissociation. Because whenever I walked through the doors of my house, I could just relax and not have to worry about work. Whereas I know that some people suffer a lot at uni with mental health and insomnia, just because they can't seem to switch off from the work, or they don't feel like there's any escape from the amount of work they're doing. Doesn't matter how much they're working. And I think that's why mental health is quite a big thing at uni at the minute. But there is a lot of support available, but we'll get into that a bit later, I think. But in terms of a work-life balance, I think that it's very common to put more emphasis on one side than the other, and I don't think that you'll ever get the balance right, especially as a first year. You're never going to get the balance right. You're always going to be too much on one side. I feel like for me and my friend group, it was very much more common for us to be more on the work side, which I don't necessarily think was a bad thing, because it meant that we got good grades, we did well, but at the same time also looking back on first year, I wish I did a lot more. And you mentioned that going out to these groups and events, societies, something I wish I did more of. I did a lot of it, to be fair, but wish I did more. Actually, now I think about it, I feel like first year Luke was the most life-work balanced Luke version. COVID Luke was just all work. I couldn't socialise at all. And then third year was me recovering from COVID lockdown and trying to get myself back into a routine. So I feel like first year Luke was the most organised, which is unreal when I think about it. But yeah, I don't know, how are things for you, Alex, anyway?
I think so. It's weird. So in first year, I think I was more work oriented, right? Like more, got to get those good grades, whatever. Like putting a less priority on those, like that social life kind of thing. And then in second year, well, it was COVID year anyway, but I was more focused on other projects as well as uni, and I ended up getting a better grade being less focused on uni, which kind of doesn't make any sense. But I guess that kind of shows how, if you're so focused on one thing, but you're not really spending as much time on other things that you might enjoy more, spending those time on other things makes those, like being more enjoyable from other things, makes that the things that are harder more enjoyable, in a way. So that's interesting to think about. But like, I'm trying to like make up a bit for lost time, just doing as many things as possible now.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, but yeah, I think you can find that balance. Like if you decide to it's easier said than done, right? Like it depends what course you do, what are you doing, and so many different things. But I feel like I'm more like in first year I was very much, I'm gonna go do this thing. Oh wait, Mel, I'll go next week. I'll go do this thing. Like, I'll leave it to next time. And I've been like, okay, let me just, like, I'm not going to be at uni forever. Let me just take advantage of the situation right now. Oh, there's this event going on. Okay, I'm going to go. I'm hesitate a bit before it. Oh, do I really want to go? Let me just go. Oh, and what happens? You enjoy it, that kind of thing. Like, it's like, well, yeah, it's one of those things. The opportunity is there, like at your fingertips. Just take it.
Yeah, no, 100%. At uni, like we were saying, there's so many opportunities there for students and societies, and there's, like you mentioned, there's over 200 societies, so there's definitely plenty of opportunity at your fingertips. You just have to go out there and get it, which sounds like what you're doing, Alex, and that makes me happy. I'm glad to hear that.
Oh, cheers.
It's all right.
Yeah.
And I also want to mention as well that if you are having that trouble finding that time for these social things and for that, even just like stress relief for yourself, because I feel like work-life balance doesn't just mean social life, it also means like time for yourself, time for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important too. And it was for me, especially. The gym was a big thing where it's like, that's time for me, being at the gym, where I'm not with anyone. I can just put some music in and, listen to my own thoughts for a little bit. And I feel like that's a very good strategy for long-term mental health at uni, is having that time for your thoughts to bubble up so you can tackle how you're feeling there and then, rather than bottling it away and leaving it for you in the future to see a therapist over. But I would say that you do have a limited amount of time. Once you finish your work, you do have that time for yourself. Like once you've done your task, there is that time. There is, the hours are going to keep ticking away. So you have to be proactive in a sense of, instead of wasting your time doing things that you can do any day of the week, just going on TikTok or whatever. Right, compared to you sign up for these events, you go to these things, you meet people, maybe just FaceTime your mum or just like an old friend, rather than wasting time on sort of like meaningless, coping mechanisms. I want to say, like stuff that just makes you feel good, but doesn't really do anything in the long run. I'd recommend avoiding those if you can. And I think that it's definitely a big thing for me from the pandemic. Anyway, it was difficult to find those times alone. I was in my house with my family all the time. I didn't really have much peace of mind. Always having things going on in the background. And it was also difficult to socialise with people as well. I feel like there's a level of disconnection that you have by using socialising platforms compared to when you're actually there in person and you're seeing them.
Oh yeah,
and I feel like yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. Like the value of in-person interactions is like I don't know, 1,000% better. Like it's just I think I don't really need to say anymore because it just is. Like obviously digital is really cool to be able to like find like talk to people across the world or whatever. Or like, but yeah, if you can take things in person, 100%.
I actually made a post on LinkedIn recently, and I basically just did a little like discussion on how I used a lot of social media and online gaming as a way of passing the time during lockdown. And those habits did stick around for me after the pandemic ended and I was back at uni, and it made it very difficult for me to find that time for friends and for that time for myself, because I was just using those things just to pass the time when I wasn't working, just to give me that relief I needed, which was good for short term, but in the long term it really doesn't help, which is why I want to emphasize having those meaningful outlets is important. And my recommendations are, and they're based off of I can't remember the guy's name. I think it's Rob Dial. He's owns a podcast. I can't remember the name of it. I'll put it in the show notes for everyone because I will remember. But he had a post on Instagram, and it was like 5 things to make your life more positive or something like that. Or it was like how to improve. I think it was like five things to do to self-improve. And I've written down 3 of them here because I thought that they were the most important in terms of this like social life thing and really having that work-life balance. And it's having a creative outlet, which can be like art or music. I mean, I play instruments now. That's my creative outlet. Having an outlet for like working on your mindset and maintenance, and that can be like reading books or listening to this podcast is a big one as well. I think amongst other amazing podcasts out there, maybe that's something we could do in the future. Just have a little list of podcasts we listen to, and then
it could be interesting to. Sorry, wait, go on, Karen.
No, yeah, 100%. And then I think an outlet for keeping yourself in physically well, and that includes mental well-being as well. I think I want to say like I feel like they go hand in hand, because going out and seeing people, and also just like keeping yourself in shape, getting away from the screens and just going out and seeing people is a way of keeping yourself healthy. You're giving your eyes a rest from the screen. Eye strain and insomnia, it's a big thing, and I think screens cause a lot of that for students. So that's a way of keeping physically healthy, and also just doing some sports, like you mentioned, squash and basketball, 2 great things to keep yourself like moving and active. Endorphins make you feel good, a lot better than scrolling on TikTok will make you feel. I promise you that. So I'd recommend those personally.
Yeah, this sports have both the physical benefit, the mental benefit as well as the social benefit as well.
Yeah,
so there's
you got all 3 boxes. You got no reason. You got no reason to not go and do some sports, guys. No.
And it makes exercise fun. Like I don't enjoy cardio at all, but basketball and squash is technically a form of cardio in a sport, right?
It's getting yourself moving. It's not about the cardio, the improvement of the fitness. Like you will get fit naturally, because they're quite. I mean, I would argue basketball and squash are quite high intensity sports. You're always on the move, especially if you're doing these long. I don't know how long basketball games are. Are they like 90 minutes?
So you got 4 quarters, either like 10 or 12 minutes a quarter.
Oh, so like 60-minute games roughly then.
No, so 10 minutes, 4 quarters, so usually 40 minutes. But if the quarter's 12 minutes, then it's longer. Because it depends on what level of basketball, how long the quarter is. I'm
probably comparing it to NBA, so it might be a bit more intense in the NBA. But
yeah. But yeah, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so obviously in basketball, the clock stops when the ball goes out of bounds and that kind of stuff. So the game is technically longer, but the actual game time, but yeah, it's definitely it's a very moving, lots of moving around sport. It's a more high intensity game versus something which say for example versus football, which is a longer period, but you can actually breathe, rest more.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, my point is that you are definitely working on your cardio, not necessarily in the sense that it would improve to levels where you could run a marathon, but it's still getting yourself moving, and I feel like that's so important. Even if I've had a lot of people tell me they're just not sports people, they don't like sports, and I just thoroughly disagree. I feel like everyone's as a human, you are designed to move. Your body is there. It wants you to get out and use it. It wants you, like, you know, it's like a car. If you don't use a car, it gets like all clogged up and it will stop running as smoothly. And I feel like your body's the same. I feel like you need to have that movement to keep yourself like healthy and just. I think it keeps work going in the long run as well. So it's just so many benefits of getting physical activity in there somewhere. 100%. Even if it's just an hour a week.
I remember 100%. Like, I remember mentioning this was probably a long time. This might have been the work-life balance episode way back in the day. But I remember mentioning that that I saw somewhere it was like there's like a massive percentage of students that exercise or whatever get higher grades than those who don't.
Yeah, I remember this. I remember mentioning this.
Like, yeah, and that shows that like the physical benefit, the mental benefit on your brain of taking that, like actually working less, can get you better grades. Like we've got an episode on that as well. How studying less can get you better grades. It's very interesting. We go into lots in depth in study techniques there. We'll also link that one in the description, in the show notes.
Yeah, 100%. No, we've. Definitely agree. I think everyone should be doing some sort of physical activity, and I feel like it's definitely a part of it is also overcoming that mental barrier, and then also the physical barrier, because it's, you know, if you haven't exercised in a long time or you've been focused, you know, especially through COVID, I imagine a lot of people have dropped sports and hobbies that they would have done but aren't doing anymore because of the pandemic. So I feel like overcoming that first mental barrier to get back into it, and then the physical, like, you know, the strain of trying to get yourself moving again, it's going to be difficult at first, but over time it definitely does pay off.
And also, just to touch upon quickly, is like, even if you're considering joining like a sports society but you're like, oh, I'm not very good at it, it doesn't matter. Like, there's loads of people there that are just beginners. I joined squash. The first time I played squash, it was at uni, and I had no clue how to play. I was like, hey, what are the rules? How does the game work? Like, I had no clue. Never played once before. Like, maybe I watched a video on it on YouTube, like, before I went the night before or whatever. But, like, literally, when the first time I played a couple of years ago, no clue whatsoever. I mean, that's fine. Like, a lot of people that are on the committee at these things are like, oh yeah, I only picked it up like a year ago. Now I'm like the vice president or whatever. Just because, like, it's in the uni environment is very much like, they've got all the way from never playing all the way to like extremely like really good, like they might be semi-pro one day kind of thing, or pro in what they're doing. And yeah, so that even if you're thinking like, oh, I'm not very good at it, there's people that are in the same shoes as you. So yeah, I think that's an important point to mention.
Yeah, I think that it can also be a bit of a barrier as well, because a lot of societies aren't very newbie friendly, I find. A lot of them have got their established groups, and they've got like a group of people that they like seeing every week, and it makes it difficult for freshers to get in. I feel like the societies that do have those taster sessions are the ones that will help the newcomers, but I've had a couple of experiences where it's not been very accessible, some societies, so you will have a bit of hit and miss, but I would just recommend sticking it out and just asking the questions like Alex has said. And if you're not getting any results, then unfortunately you might just have to, you know, cut your losses with a certain society, which is what I had to do with a couple, unfortunately, at King's. But yeah, I think persistence is definitely key, and over time you will get better. And this might be just one bad egg out of the carton, but I feel like for the most part people are very enthusiastic to learn that people are interested in the things they're interested in.
Yeah, I think it very much comes to a numbers game. Like, I think a lot of things in life, it's a numbers game. Like, finding a sports society, numbers game. Just try as many as possible. Especially, I should have mentioned this earlier because this would have been more relevant towards the beginning, but relationships, 100% a numbers game. Just talk to as many people as possible. Just like, yo, oh, you're studying business too? Oh, no way. Oh, you like basketball?
you just hype them up. No way,
yeah,
you study
like,
business. That is awesome. I feel like Americans are like that, aren't they? Americans are very, very passionate, enthusiastic. Maybe we should try and do that on the show, Alex. Just be very overly enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, just show that energy.
Yeah. Sorry, I might have taken away from your point there. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, 100% is like, it's what was I saying? Oh yeah, numbers game. Like I learned this from my placement year. A lot of my work was just like it was a numbers game. Like just put in those numbers in to get the results in what I was doing, and I think that applies to so many areas of life. It applies in the gym. It applies in relationships. It applies in your work. I think it's probably the biggest thing I learned from my placement year is life is a numbers game.
Is it?
No. Like the biggest thing I learned was applying that thing that I learned in marketing specifically to both that like industry as well as like how that can correlate to literally like nearly every area of your life.
Yeah, it reminds me of something that Mark Zuckerberg said, and he sets himself yearly challenges, and one of his challenges that he set himself was to meet somebody new every year. No, not every day for 1 year. So that's basically an incentive for him to go out, get out there and meet new people. And I guess in that sense, I kind of see the relation there. And I think that's maybe a good challenge for someone at uni. Just starting out, meet someone new every day if you can. In a lecture theatre, you've got so much opportunity. Like even when you go for lunch, like in the coffee shop, meet someone. I feel like it's impossible not to meet someone new every day if you're at uni. So maybe give that challenge a go. I imagine for probably about 90% of students, that's going to be very uncomfortable just talking to someone in a coffee shop. But you know, we've spoke about Tim Ferriss. We've given that advice. It's about pushing that comfort zone. You'll be more confident, and you'll finish third year, and you'll be really confident, employable student, graduate. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'm blabbering on.
I feel like I remember. I don't know if it was Tim Ferriss mentioned it, but it was like there was like one of his challenges, like the discomfort challenges, was like going to a coffee shop and just lie on the ground for like 10 seconds.
I didn't read that. I haven't read that much of the book. I need to finish.
I feel it might have been there. It might have been somewhere else, but that was really interesting. I could do that. I don't have the confidence to do that yet, but like that just shows like it's interesting, you know.
Or an alternative would be go up to someone and just ask them to write something on your arm, like give them a Sharpie and just draw something on my arm. That could be a cool one as well. Maybe instead of lying on the ground.
You come up with that?
I think I saw that there's a company called Adventure Challenge, and they do books for meeting people, and they have like little challenges in there just to like meet people.
Okay.
So, something to check out. That's where I got that from. I don't have the book. They're a little expensive, so I'm going to wait around maybe and see how I feel. But yeah, no, I think it's important to do those exercises maybe. And a numbers game, you know, it makes me think that the more people you don't talk to is the more friends that you're missing out on, right? More potential friends that you're missing out on.
Yeah. 100%. I think that's a nice way to wrap it up. Relationships equals numbers game.
It's going to be the new title of the episode. just keep it nice and simple. Relationships equals numbers game. Yeah, I think something that I'd like to mention as well is that doing the research for universities, I think, is another big thing. You shouldn't just think about the academics when you're looking at universities. You'd also think about the social side, like what societies do these unis have? You know, with the accommodation as well, like who will you be living with? Will you be living in a group of 4, a group of 8? Like, this is still all part of your social life. The people that you're living with is going to be part of your social life, and the societies that you can potentially get involved in, like, you know, even what's nearby. Because when I was looking at universities, I was looking for, when I applied to King's, I was like, okay, does King's have a judo society? Yes, they do. So I was like, great, I'll apply to King's. But when I got there, they didn't actually have one, so I got lied to there. But the intention is important. I think is to do that. I think that's important.
Yeah, I remember looking at when I was applying. I was like, okay, do they have basketball? That was like first was the course, and I was like, okay, do they have basketball? Because if they don't, I'm probably not going to apply there. Like, just because it's like that is a big part of an interest of mine, right? And if I'm going to be somewhere for 3 years, I want them to have something that have that, because so many places have it. It makes sense, you know.
Yeah, so that's something to think about, I think. And if you're concerned or you're not too sure, it's best to do is just, you can maybe message the student union, or if there's like a help centre they have, you can message them and be like, hey, do you have this society? Or
I think I think they have a whole list on that you can see, even if you don't have an account yet, like on each
that's true.
like student union website.
Yeah, that's true.
So you should be able to see it. That's how I did see it before I started at uni, by looking there. But yeah,
I'd say yeah, something to think about. You could always message the specific societies as well. They usually have Facebook pages or Instagram groups that you can message them on. So just message them and be like, hey, I'm going to be coming to this uni soon. Do you have any events coming up, or can I meet you for a quick call or something like that? Just get yourself out there. You know, Alex, just get yourself out there.
Yeah.
But I think we should maybe wrap up around about now.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, thank you everybody for listening, watching. I'm going to say my usual spiel. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. We do really appreciate it. Yeah, if you did like it, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It does help with the growth. Feel free to share it with a friend, send them a link, tell us what part you enjoyed. We do have our email, which you can shoot us a message on. We're also on all audio platforms if you're watching us on YouTube, and we are also on YouTube if you're listening on to any audio platform. Also feel free to follow us on social media. Shoot us a message over there as well if you want. We have some clips going out there as well if you want to see some microform content from these episodes or from previous episodes and that kind of stuff. But yeah, thanks a lot for listening and watching and we will see you in the next episode.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. See you soon.